And so at the Eucharist we have, first of all, I guess it's on the altar here. We have a fairly substantial piece of furniture here.
Yeah.
What were the altars like in the spaces that you served?
Yeah, the altar where I served as a younger pastor were a little bit bigger than this because the churches were bigger, but it was always the central part of the nave, which represented for us the great sacrifice of Jesus our Lord, sacrificed
right
for us. And so rather than having the pulpit in the center of the worship service, indicating that the word is more important than the sacrament, although they're both means of grace.
Yes.
That Lutherans, I think, just decided that this was a better place for it.
Sure.
So,
in a way, it sort of shows how our tradition, anyway, holds up hospitality as a piece of our life together. Eh?
That's a good thought.
Yeah. And the cross is usually associated with the altar, I think. So if you don't have a cross right on the altar, you'll usually have it right behind the altar or close by. Eh?
Yeah.
So in our space, we have it centrally as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and usually when we come to a Eucharistic service, and in this place we do it weekly, all the vessels are covered. And so right now we've got them uncovered. I don't have the veil over it and so on, but we would have wine in the cup, and it's elevated during the Eucharist.
Yes.
We'd have bread on the plate, it's also elevated, and we tell the story. They symbolize things, right? Sometimes we talk in terms of body and blood in the Eucharist. How would you explain that to somebody who might get a little bit squeamish about the thought of even cannibalism or something like that?
I know. I think the early Christians were accused of being cannibals.
Yeah.
Because they met in secret in the underground tombs, under Rome. But I think for us, bread and wine symbolize, again, fruits of this wonderful world. When I graduated from seminary, the sacrament was very difficult to understand. So we followed the old line, and that is that the body and the blood of Christ is in a mystical way present at communion when the elements have been blessed. Rather than saying the body has been turned into, or real body, the bread or the wine into real blood.
Right.
We speak about it as a symbolical presence of the Lord. And I would think now that coming here to this little worship place, that we have a much better understanding. Would you explain that?
I suppose one of the clear breaks that Luther made with Rome back in the 16th century, when Martin Luther, the Roman Catholic monk, was defining what made Lutherans different, or what the new understanding was. I think the word used is consubstantiation versus transubstantiation, which in short means con is with, so Jesus' presence and life was in, with, and under the elements of bread and wine, versus transubstantiation, which is there's actual transformation, that when you say the words of the institution, that somehow the bread becomes flesh or body, in a real literal way, and the wine becomes blood, and which I could see how that would be problematic for people who are outside of the tradition and coming into it.
I just want to say that by saying now that the bread is body, the presence of Christ,
Right.
and blood, the wine, is the life of Christ.
Right.
And that makes a lot more sense to me, and particularly I would think in our society today, who are not really biblically aware of terms and so on. And explaining it this way, I think, makes a much easier way to grasp.
I think that's a very hospitable way of being, and I think hospitality is a big piece of the sacrament of the Eucharist.
Yeah.
We have this sitting here. It's sort of a fancy pitcher. We call it a flagon, and then we also have another. Sometimes we'll use this or another one like this, and it's to hold the bread, and we'll actually process them forward at the time of the offering when we receive money and then the gifts of the field, so the wheat and the wine or the grapes. They're brought forward as an offering, and so that's sort of how it becomes sacrifice. But it's also sort of the way we might see a waiter bring food to the table at the restaurant in a sense too, and there's that hospitality element that way.
Yeah, but you don't have to pay for it.
That's right, it's a gift. Yeah, exactly. So I think the hospitality piece is big too, because everybody receives bread, everybody receives wine, no one is left out. All receive from the same loaf, all receive from the same cup. And in our world where I think we really do need to be conscious of germs and all that and sickness, even so, I think we also need to be conscious of how we're all tied together in one humanity and one common journey of life.
Absolutely.
And so this becomes a symbol of that as well. So it's
and all are welcome.
Exactly, yeah. It's very rich in symbol that way.